What's up, y'all? I am coming right now. Thank you so much for your patience. Let me turn my 639 hertz frequencies down. And let's see, make sure, let me know if you guys can hear me loud and clear. Peace, Ruby Margarita, peace, freedom, oh, free love music. Lucky, what's good? T-Boss, what's up? Tampa Supreme, let me know if you guys can hear me okay, and I will go ahead and set up my screen, but first I need to make sure my sound is okay, so let me know. Good evening, good evening. Can you guys hear me? Is my sound coming through clear? Peace and love. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining me late night. I appreciate you. Just want to make sure you guys can hear me loud and clear, that our sound is good to go. Peace, Cajun Spices, what's good? Okay, I'm good. Thank you very much, T-Boss. Welcome to all you beautiful souls. Well, let me start with my normal introduction. Peace, what's good? This is ZaZaAli. Today is Friday, August the 26th, 2022. I pray that this message reaches you all in the best of health, spirit, and mind. I am doing very well. Let me share my screen just to go ahead and set the tone for our conversation. So this is totally impromptu for me to do this live. My plan and intention was to record this today and then to put it out. But as the day started getting later and later, you know, having to record it, then download it, then turn around and upload it again, it becomes kind of laborious. And I didn't want to let this day go by without posting this video, because I committed to doing these weekly news segments and I want to make my word bond. I'm still perfecting how I visualize this segment coming across in terms of the whole studio background, some of the visuals that I want to be presented in the foreground. There's some stuff that I'm kind of looking into. So I haven't like 100%, you know, put together my vision in terms of how I want to present this to you guys on my membership channel in particular. So tonight I'm going to be, this is kind of like me working out some of the kinks, especially when it comes to time, because I want these segments to be 1 hour in length. So me being able to edit myself and edit the type of content that I choose to share on a week-to-week basis, I'm kind of working through the kinks of that. I also intended on doing this video face-to-face with you guys. But again, the day got the best of me, and the lighting in my office isn't that good. So as time progresses, it goes from being, well lit and sunny and vibrant to like, barely any lighting in it at all. And I didn't want to have to deal with lighting and all of that type of stuff. So like I said, I wanted to make my word bond and post these videos once a week. I also made a decision because this headline news was ZaZaAli, and I still haven't settled on a name yet either. Thank you guys for all of the suggestions. I read all of the comments. I got the comments in the membership channel, and there were some really good ones that I'm considering, but I haven't settled on a name yet. So there's that. So right now we're rocking with headline news with ZaZaAli, but this is going to be a primary feature of my private membership channel, but I'm going to premiere 1 episode a month on YouTube. So I'll do 1 episode a month on YouTube and 4 episodes a month on my membership channel. That way I, am still bringing traction to my YouTube channel, obviously, and doing my job, in terms of sharing information and providing resources and content that hopefully contributes to raising the vibration on our planet. So once a month, you will be able to at least view 1 full headline news with ZaZaAli, and then the remainder of the segments that I do on the private membership channel, I'll be able to be a lot more open and forthright in terms of the type of content that I have to do. Or that I want to do, excuse me. It's very frustrating, especially when you're a free thinker and you think outside the box. It's very frustrating to not be able to speak your truth as you want to speak your truth, and so the fact that we're like having to find all these ways to navigate censorship. I'm using coded language on all of my, typing, even when I type on other people's content on social media, even on my website in the Kingdom Within series, you'll notice when I, put subject matters or tags on certain videos, I will use coded language in order to navigate the algorithm. So it's very frustrating for me to, be trying to bring truth and information, and now I'm having to do extra work to like navigate the algorithm. So that's another reason why I'm focusing all of my content on my website, because it's disrespectful. Whether it's, Mark Zuckerberg or artificial intelligence or the powers that quote unquote used to be, whatever that element is, Satan, that's trying to get in the way of truth and of the light vibration being able to reach the masses, is disrespectful. You know what I mean? And so I'm creating these different avenues to still be able to share, research and valuable information, and to raise the bar on the consciousness. I have a presentation called The Pineal Gland, the Seat of the Soul. I'm going to be posting it tomorrow. I'm going to post a 20-minute clip on my YouTube channel, but the full 1 hour presentation is going to be on my membership group. And one of the things that I was really intentional about in this presentation is like, we really have to raise the bar on the level of conversation. Like there's so much ratchet, ghetto, mediocre, low vibrational shit happening on our planet right now, and kind of permeating the airwaves, the social media airwaves, the community airwaves, the family airwaves. Just the whole frequency of humanity is being, consistently provoked into a low vibrational nature. And so I really want to start having sort of upper echelon conversations when it comes to, this idea of living quantum, right? I was having a conversation with my homegirl earlier today, and I told her, like, there's a very big part of me, the spiritual aspect of me, that's already like living in a totally different reality from the average person. And being in LA, back in California, has really sort of solidified that for me. I'm living in a totally different frame of consciousness, frame of reference. like time zone in terms of my soul's timing. I'm living in a totally different reality from most of the people in this environment. And yes, with in LA for sure. But really the masses of people across this planet, this country, America in particular, but across this planet, you know. And so I want to start having conversations and creating content where we're raising the bar. You know, I think there's so many, when it comes to relationships, the Black male female dichotomy, like the level of engagement is so primitive and so mediocre and rudimentary at this point. It's embarrassing. And I'm going to talk about some of that later in the show today, when I talk about the Young Miami and Megan interview on Revolt, which just repulsed me. And I'll get into that a little bit later. But again, the reason for doing these news segments every week, the reason for the pineal gland, you know, talking about these sort of spiritual aspects of our culture and our history and our reality as human beings, that are the keys and the codes to us, you know, escaping or thriving through or surviving, depending on your reference point in your consciousness, what's happening on this planet and what's getting ready to happen. I've been consistently telling you guys, you don't want to wait until the shit hits the fan before you start getting serious. And really the shit has already hit the fan, right? So moving and operating with a urgency and with the seriousness, not fear-based, you know, love-based, and in that God consciousness and that Christ consciousness type of energy, but moving with seriousness and urgency and intention. I put up a video on the membership channel yesterday called Energetic Resonance, and I was alluding to the fact that, you know, we're always talking to ourselves. And so you're always talking to yourself. That's the most prominent and prevalent conversation that you're consistently having. Whatever the nature of that inner language and that inner conversation is a reflection of the world that you've created for yourself today. And with that being said, we'll go ahead and get started. This is Headline News with ZaZaAli, a weekly news segment highlighting local, national, and global events, particularly those being censored by mainstream media. Headline News with ZaZaAli will air every Friday exclusively on the ZaZaAli.com private membership channel. Much love to you guys in the chat room. Please hold me down because I'm not going to be reading comments or responding to comments because I really have to stay focused on the information. And you know, sometimes I get sidetracked. If I see the wrong thing, you know, it'll take me left, and I don't want to do that. So to all my family in the chat room, just hold me down, you guys, okay? All right, so this is another quote that I read in the video that I posted yesterday, Energetic Resonance. This is from Jim Keith, his book, Mass Control, Engineering Human Consciousness. He said, quote, various beliefs can be implanted in many people after brain function has been sufficiently disturbed by accidentally or deliberately induced fear, anger, or excitement. Of the results caused by such disturbances, the most common one is temporary impaired judgment and heightened suggestibility. Its various group manifestations are sometimes classed under the heading of herd instinct and appear most spectacularly in wartime, during severe epidemics, and in all similar periods of common danger, which increase anxiety and so individual and mass suggestibility. This is what we're experiencing right now. This is what the collective consciousness is going through. You're either a part of the herd instinct and you are subject to individual and mass suggestibility, or you still own and have sovereignty over your mind and your body and your spiritual countenance. And just a reminder, this is, hopefully I have my group members tuning in right now. I did post a few minutes ago and let you guys know that I was going live. This is episode 2 of Headline News with ZaZaAli. I'm still kind of working the kinks out on the presentation aspect of how I'm putting this together. So I'm sharing this publicly with everybody in the meantime until I, you know, kind of get it to the level that I want to get it at. And then, you know, that's when it'll be my official launch. So So clashes in Haiti as thousands march demanding change. A few thousand people have taken to the streets across Haiti, demanding that Prime Minister Ariel Henry step down and calling for a better quality of life in the Caribbean nation. Protesters set up burning barricades on Monday in some areas, including the capital of Port-au-Prince, with some saying they were angry over the growing scarcity of gasoline and diesel. Families don't know what to do, demonstrator Lionel Jean-Pierre said as the crowd around him chanted, "If Ariel doesn't leave, we're going to die." Gang violence and kidnappings have surged of their president. And just as a reminder to take us back to last year around September, the infamous imagery of the Haitian people being stuck down in Texas and, you know, the white men on horses in a very sort of racially antagonizing image, all of that was theater. All of that was to continue to propagate the race dichotomy and to continue to, you know, sort of keep people focused on everything except the things that are actually important, right? Now, on a spiritual level, though, what's happening in Haiti and what continues to happen to Haiti is very important and very relevant. And so I'm referencing the Haitian immigrant or migrant situation in Dallas back in September of last year, but also there was a 7.2 magnitude earthquake, August 14th, 2001 in Haiti, right? So Haiti is continuously being strategically targeted in ways that are seen and many ways that are unseen. I believe that those, I have to be careful how I say this. I believe that they have been using and continue to use weaponry that has the potential of creating man-made quakes of the earth. Okay. And so there's a lot of evidence that backs this up. The technology is there, the patents are there, the language has been spoken in military documents. All of this is readily available information, you know, that anybody who really wants to know can find. But again, Haiti being a specific target for a long period of time, right? And so you'll notice in the article when it was talking about one of the things that they said, was if he doesn't go, if Ariel doesn't leave, we're going to die. Well, I have to let, you know, not I have to let, the important thing to understand for Haitians and for the African diaspora, the melanated people all over the planet, the time of the savior complex and government ruling your life and your affairs is over. And so when it comes to Haitians, when it comes to Africans, when it comes to Africans in America, when it comes to indigenous people, when it comes to Native American people, the original people of the planet, melanated people of the planet, however we identify ourselves all over the globe, the time for the savior dichotomy in terms of the governmental infrastructure, whether they're headed by Black people or, you know, local nationals or outside entities, those times in terms of the spiritual warfare that we're facing are over. So Haitians, like everybody else around the world, are now going to be faced with the reality of governing themselves in spite of the government. That's where we're headed. I know that's a great question, how to stay high vibration while constantly analyzing the news. I think that's why it's important to do this because, you know, we have to be able to deal with it. We can't run from it, but also be able to maintain our square no matter whom or what. And that's, I've been juggling with that because, you know, I stay knee deep in the try, at least for the most part, to stay abreast with what's going on with the science, with the technology, with all of the news. And it's a lot. So there's a lot of times where I just have to completely turn everything off and kind of go within, you know, and then come back to it. Oklahoma court schedules 25 executions between August 2022 and December 2024. The Oklahoma Court of Criminal Appeals has set execution dates for 25 of the state's 43 death row prisoners, including 43 death row prisoners, scheduling nearly an execution a month from August 2022 through December 2024. If carried out, the execution schedule, unprecedented in the state's history, would put to death 58% of the state's death row, including multiple prisoners with severe mental illness, brain damage, and claims of innocence. The court issued its execution schedule in 2 orders on July 1st, 2022, in response to an application filed on June 10th by Oklahoma Attorney General John O'Connor. O'Connor sought the execution dates 4 days after federal district judge Stephen Friot denied a challenge to the constitutionality of the state's lethal injection protocol brought by 28 of the state's death row prisoners. Oklahoma uses a 3-drug execution process that includes the controversial drug midazolam, which has been implicated in multiple botched executions. And if you are familiar with my Kingdom Within web series, if you have watched it, then you will recognize the word or the term midazolam, because midazolam has played a very instrumental role in the United Kingdom from 2020 up until today in terms of the way that this whole satanic agenda has unfolded during the last 2.5 years. Speaking of Oklahoma judicial system, Julius Jones is still behind bars. Most importantly, Jones is still alive. He was convicted of the 1999 slaying of Edmond businessman Paul Howell. Jones spent nearly 20 years on death row claiming innocence. Stitt's executive order commuted his death sentence, but demanded Jones still die in prison, barring him from ever seeking a pardon or parole. Jones has few legal options moving forward outside of new evidence surrounding the crime or that Jones' attorney was ineffective at his 2001 trial. He is barred from seeking relief in state courts. Now, I'm referencing both of these stories because this is in real time how a lot of this spiritual warfare is going to play out and why a lot of this spiritual warfare is going to play out. I personally know Julius Jones. I went to high school with him. He was a basketball player. He hung around all of the same people that I hung around. I can't say that we were friends, but I would definitely have called, we had a good relationship while I knew of him for the year that I went to school at John Marshall High School in Oklahoma City. I was there for 2 years total. And so I know him personally, not well enough to just say adamantly, I know he didn't do it. No, but I've looked into this case extensively, as a lot of people have, and it's clear that this is one of those situations where there has been a grave injustice, right? So you look at a state like Oklahoma, and this is for the Make America Great Again crowd. This is for the liberal part or the Republican or the red part of white America that still is not willing to confront her evil or her dark past that's still very prevalent today, right? This is why the spiritual warfare is necessary, because even as white people have been the victims of their own government over the past 2.5 years in a major way, I cannot underscore that enough, there is still the unwillingness or the inability to recognize these sort of clear dichotomies and injustices that are still happening on all of our watch, right? And so there's a fast track, to put people to death in terms of the death penalty system, right? I'm not pro death penalty or anti death penalty. I think the whole entire system is broken. So for America to even really be evaluating whether people are worthy of life or not is hell of hypocritical. You know what I mean? So it's like, yes, you want the pedophiles and the rapists and the murderers and people who are just, completely out of control and wreaking havoc on society to be penalized. But, America creates what America is. So this is a landmine of murder and of narcissism and of psychopaths and of serial killers and rapists. The FBI statistic says that there's 4 million pedophiles in America at any given time. That's an FBI statistic. right? So going back to Julius Jones, the fast track for the death penalty, you know, and sort of stacking these people up and knocking them over in terms of the lethal injection process, right? Creating this really hard line position in terms of how they're operating. In Oklahoma, I'm very familiar with their justice system because I lived there. So I know a lot of people, you know, like it's very, very hard line, super, super red, super still white, you know, the type of white energy that certain Black people still bow when they come in contact with, you know, that whole looking down type thing. Yeah, there's still a lot of that happening in those parts of the country, areas where sundown towns are familiar, right? So for America now, this spiritual warfare, the repentance aspect of what has been done to the original people of this country and of this planet, there, you know, there's the karma element, and the law of compensation has to be solidified. But we have to put ourselves in a position to reap the benefits of the sacrifice and the struggle of people like Julius Jones, right? So imagine if we did a collective meditation, some of the powerful minds that are above, beyond, among us in the spiritual community held mass meditations, and we all visualized Julius Jones walking free and covering down on his family and projecting wellness over his mother in the meantime, right? And visualize collectively without malice in our hearts or evil intentions or touching it with low vibration, right? But coming together collectively and visualizing and imagining his freedom. I think it can be done.
Do you feel overworked, burned out?
Wait, let me stop that because it happened too quick. I want to put a period at the end of that statement. I want to make sure that that goes out into the ethers in the right way, and that it's received by the right minds and the right spirit for that to actually become a reality. I don't want to skip past that. I'm going to be talking kind of quickly because I want to make sure I get through this whole presentation, but still, I want to make sure I'm respectful and I'm emphatic about that point, making that point.
Do you feel overworked, burned out, and not rewarded for your hard work? Some workers are saying, fine, they'll just quietly quit working so hard without actually resigning from their job. CBS 8's Abby Alford shares this new work culture going viral on TikTok and how to deal with it.
This term quiet quitting on TikTok doesn't technically mean you're quitting your job. You're just quietly pulling away from your 9 to 5, doing the bare minimum. Older generations may balk at it, but this could wake up some employers and help the workforce.
I recently learned about this term called quiet quitting.
The term quiet quitting is making quite the comeback since the 1999 movie Office Space, with the hashtag gaining more than 20 million views on TikTok.
You're not outright quitting your job, but you're quitting the idea of going above and beyond. You're still performing your duties, but you're no longer subscribing to the hustle culture mentality that work has to be your life.
In American culture, we have what's called an ideal worker norm, which is the best worker is available at all hours.
San Diego State University Associate Professor of Psychology, Dr. Lacey Barber, has published her research on telepressure in the workforce.
These conversations are happening at all age levels in the organization.
The pandemic sparked this new work culture and is putting mental health first, where this quiet quitting means workers are not going the extra mile, not working overtime or checking emails and text after hours. Barber says before, the office had structure, but now remote work creates fewer boundaries, leading to more burnout and job creep, where you're tasked with more work than you are paid for or not rewarded.
Not doing a job of 2 to 3 people, stuff like that.
This comes at a time when Gallup released a poll that shows in 2020, worker engagement went down for the first time in a decade to 36% and continues to dip to 32%. Barber says there needs to be what she calls sustainable engagement amongst coworkers and managers.
So now it's about how can we signal to each other consideration for flexible schedules without obligation.
This could be a wake-up call for all employers.
So very important for retention. Losing workers is really costly. So I think there's some upside for employers and managers.
UC San Diego professor of management Elizabeth Lyons is an expert in teleworking best practices.
And I think making these adjustments is going to result in a more productive workforce and more productive companies. It does require upfront effort.
That effort from all fronts could create a more namaste work culture.
Well, past 5, better clock out.
Another lesson in American mediocrity, that this is actually a thing of quiet quitting, where instead of leaving the job that you hate and going and finding a better job, you just settle in not working too much, not putting too much effort or too much energy in. And I get that we live in a sort of overworked, especially in America, overworked, stressed out, anxiety, depression, like we're dealing with that here in a mass capacity, right? But in a righteous world, people are being supported in aspiring to excellence. You know what I mean? And to really living life at a like really enjoying your work, really enjoying your life beyond just a surface of I'm getting a paycheck. And like I've said continuously, I think that the high levels of depression, the high levels of anxiety are really about people just completely denying everything that this world has become and not wanting to be a part of it anymore. And so some people will call that giving up and other people will call that checking out, right? So this is a subtle way of checking out, but it's another reflection of the acceptance of mediocrity and neutrality. Like this whole 2.5 year expose that we've been on, there's a lot of people still riding the neutrality wave, not really standing up against anything, not really talking about it or making any momentum to, at least energetically, be counter to everything that this system represents. There's a lot of people riding the neutrality wave because this hasn't affected them yet, right? Yet. And then there's a lot of people riding the mediocrity wave. And so, like I've also been saying on social media, a lot of the influencing culture and YouTube culture is making people mentally and spiritually lazy, right? Even how people brag about not reading books. Like I always find that just so interesting how people actually brag about not reading books. And even the difference between reading a Kindle or reading a book online opposed to actually holding a book in your hand. Well, for one thing, there's no energetic transference happening when you're holding a book. So there's no frequencies coming off the screen of the computer or the iPad, right? And then also the wireless connection that it takes in order to even utilize those tools, right? And obviously sometimes, you can have a book reader that doesn't necessarily need to be connected to the internet, but still the whole aspect of having another form of technology and energy in the process, when all you really need to do is read the content to ascertain the information. Right. So reading, the process of reading, when I watch TV, I keep subtitles because I'm listening to what's happening, but I'm also reading, which is strengthening my brain, keeping my brain, which is a muscle, right, consistently working, consistently strengthening it. And a lot of people in this society are not doing that. We scoff at reading now. It's the craziest thing. Libraries all across this country have been closing for 10, 15, 20 years now. It's been happening slowly and subtly, but it is definitely taking place. And this is what's created that herd mentality and that groupthink mentality where everybody can be walking towards the edge, literally about to fall off the cliff. And because everybody else is doing it, nobody stands up against it, or, the common sense, light goes off in their head. President Biden announces student loan relief for borrowers who need it most. A 3-part plan delivers on President Biden's promise to cancel $10,000 of student loan debt for low to middle income borrowers. The goal is to provide targeted debt relief to address the financial harms of the pandemic, fulfilling the president's campaign commitment. The Department of Education will provide up to $20,000 in debt cancellation to Pell Grant recipients with loans held by the Department of Education, and up to $10,000 in debt cancellation to non-Pell Grant recipients. Borrowers are eligible for this relief if their individual income is less than $125,000 or $250,000 for married couples. No high-income individual or high-income household in the top 5% of incomes will benefit from this action. Now, this is so interesting, right? And I because I've been on that, looking into college for my son, and like having to do the whole like really discovering how much it actually costs, right, to put a child through college, or a teen, not even a child, a young man through college. Tuition fees continue to rise as pandemic inflation woes hit colleges. Inflation is pushing up college tuition and fees, while staff shortages are forcing wages and benefits higher. The squeeze comes at the worst possible time for higher education. And so I'm putting these stories back to back like this so we can learn discernment, because they give you a little bit, but then they're taking a lot, you know, and that's how Satan or the devil, that's the dance. I'm not really going to give you anything significant. I'm not really even going to promise you anything. I'm just going to roll this carrot and see if you follow the carrot and see if you eventually bite the carrot. But I'm going to take everything that you have in the process, including your sovereignty and your soul. And these are prime examples. We're going to give you $10,000 or a maximum $20,000 relief in college debt. Meanwhile, every year, college tuition is skyrocketing. The average person is paying somewhere between $10,000 and $30,000 a year for college. And those aren't even the elite schools. Those are the, you know, the so-so schools to the middle echelon sort of quality schools. So we know the American school system and educational system is broken, because look at all of the problems in the world and how many of them are actually being solved. You have liberal arts departments, you have economics departments, you have financial institutions, you have, you know, mental health, psychological, you know, institutions all across this country. And people are suffering in ways that, you know, we couldn't even imagine. And these colleges and universities are producing bachelor's degrees and bachelor of science degrees and PhDs and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And none of these people are really moving into the world and solving real-time issues in our reality. And I'm not saying there's not some exceptions to the rules, because there's always exceptions to the rules. But again, this is how the underpinnings of this reality has been working, and how it's been capitalizing and energy harvesting all of us for our entire lives. All of this system is getting ready to die. It's going to be difficult to watch. It's going to be difficult to be a part of, because if you're living, it's going to affect you in one way or another. How much it's going to affect you is dependent on how you're preparing right now. Citing the higher cost of everything from energy to food, plus upward pressure on wages and benefits, several institutions have already announced tuition and fee hikes for next year as high as 4.7%, while also raising prices for meal plans and housing, which at public four-year universities are already higher than in-state tuition. Many other colleges will set their rates this month. Going back to the spiritual warfare aspect, this is going to force the people who still have control of their minds, who are still operating from their God self and are conscious and aware. This is going to force us to create a parallel society in this world, because there's so many things that need to be discovered. There's so many things that need to be created. Everything that we needed before 2020, we still need now. So even when I watch the Haitian situation, right, and all of these people trying to flee Haiti and seeking refuge from the earthquake, and then, you know, a lot of the different chaos that's happening there, they're fleeing a land that if it was properly nurtured and properly cultivated and properly taken care of, would they really even need to flee? Just like the story in last week when I talked about Africa and, you know, Tanzania having this, you know, this huge fortune of gold that they can't even mine themselves. And so they're tap dancing because they're very weary of Chinese and Western countries coming in and doing the mining, because they know they're going to rape them. But why hasn't Africa developed and cultivated the skill set and the tools and the utilities to do it themselves? There's just no quantifiable reason or excuse in my mind at this stage.
And we begin tonight with a story that you'll only see here on Fox. An employee with Child Protective Services is caught on camera telling a 14-year-old girl in foster care to become a prostitute.
That's right, and this girl is one of hundreds of kids in CPS custody living in hotels all over the state. Fox 26's Randy Wallace live from Southwest Houston here with this story. Randy, the exclusive.
Yeah, Jonathan. Now, earlier this year, a federal judge scorned Child Protective Services for making kids available for prostitution in the CPS system. Now we have a case where an employee with that state agency is actually encouraging prostitution of a 14-year-old child.
You'll be a hoe, be a real hoe.
Wouldn't they remove a child from a parent that told their child to be a prostitute?
They should. And they would.
Keisha Basley has 9 kids. She turned to Child Protective Services to help her with her 14-year-old daughter, who she says was running away and causing trouble at school.
My daughter told me that the worker had been telling her that she should do these things. So she said she decided to video her.
Please. CPS is housing the girl at a hotel. She's one of dozens in Harris County. In the video, she tells the CPS employee she wants food. The CPS worker tells her to be a prostitute. I mean, she was basically encouraging a 14-year-old girl to become a prostitute.
And giving her an incentive to do so, and almost a threat of not having her needs being met if she didn't do what this woman very explicitly told her to do.
If the parent, was to do something like this to my child, I would be bashed. I would be called a horrible parent. I would lose my kids.
Basley filed a formal complaint with CPS.
This should not happen to girls in their care. This should not happen. This is unacceptable.
Jamie Masters, the commissioner of CPS, came to Houston to personally apologize to Basley and her daughter.
I've never seen that happen before, where a commissioner of CPS comes in from Austin just to apologize about something that's horrible that's been done to a child and a parent involved with CPS.
I do not believe that that was genuine. I really don't.
It's bad enough if it's one rogue caseworker. It concerns me that it may be bigger than that. And they need to investigate this and make sure that it's not just one person. And they've got to figure out a way to protect these kids.
CPS sent us the following prepared statement. DFPS is aware of the video and has taken action. The person in the video, who was employed as CPS support staff, was dismissed from her position August 10th. The safety and appropriateness with which children in care must be treated is our paramount concern. Nothing less will be tolerated. Reporting live from the Southwest side, Randy Wallace, Fox 26 News.
In March of 2022, it was reported that employees of a Texas contracted facility meant to care for female foster children who are victims of sex trafficking were discovered to be trafficking the same children, according to a federal judge. 7 children ages 11 to 17 were victimized by 9 alleged perpetrators, according to discussions held during an emergency court hearing called by the U.S. District Judge Janice Jack on Thursday. The children remained in the facility for over a month after the abuse was first reported before they were removed. So I want to make sure that you guys understand these are 2 totally different stories, both of them happening in Texas, right? And so Texas, when you look at the statistics of human trafficking, Texas by far has the most significant number of human trafficking statistics of victims. They blow every other country in America out of the water. Texas houses approximately 313,000 victims of human trafficking. In 2019, Texas experienced 1,080 reported cases of human trafficking. Almost 20% of all trafficking victims in the US travel through Texas, usually along the Interstate 10 corridor. El Paso and Houston are identified as Texas cities with a particularly high level of human trafficking. And it's very interesting for me I want to make sure I emphasize Houston, because Houston has been, in terms of hip hop news lately. It's been in the, you know, from the Jay Prince to the Megan situation and all that stuff with her contract. Like, I'm seeing a lot of other people having the conversation about Houston and how culturally relevant Houston is and how everybody wants to be in Houston and et cetera, et cetera. And I have history in Houston, right? When I was living in Oklahoma, I was going back and forth to Texas. So Houston and Dallas were my stomping grounds at one point, right? But this is not something that Houston and Black people in particular, and Black men in particular in Houston, Texas, need to be proud of. This is something that you need to, especially if you are a cheerleader of the stripper culture in Houston, which is very big, just like it's very big in Atlanta. I believe that the sex trafficking industry and the prostitution industry and the strip culture all go hand in hand, right? Texas law enforcement rescued 91 people from a home in Houston in April of 2021. Was it 91 people or was it 91 children? I'm just saying, because, you know, they like to change the words up and soften where they can when it comes to hiding their own discretions. In May of 2021, signed legislation HB 390 mandating that hotel, motel, inn, or similar business operators with more than 10 rooms offering fee-based temporary lodging require each of their employees to complete an annual human trafficking awareness and prevention training program. This is Babylon eating its youth. And this is happening all over this country. And it's not just, you know, the Jeffrey Epsteins of the world. It's also uncles and aunties in, you know, regular communities, and, you know what I mean? A lot of hidden, traumatic, painful energy being reverberated in our culture. Thank God Kendrick Lamar in his recent album had the courage to actually talk about it in a righteous and powerful way. You know what I mean? But this is one of those underlying schisms, the things in the cracks and crevices of this culture, Black culture, white culture, every culture. I mean, Thailand is one of the most beautiful places in the earth, and it is well known to everybody that goes to and from Thailand that it is a playground for people who are pedophiles and who want to come to the island and have their way with the young girls and the young boys. So imagine, like, it's like kind of like LA. I talked about this at my event this past Saturday. The extreme beauty of nature having to mingle and mix itself with the depravity and the wickedness that's in the hearts and minds of men and women. A record label has cut its ties with an AI rapper after criticism that it contained racial stereotypes, including repeat use of the N-word. FN Mecca is an artificial intelligence musician given the appearance of a Black male cyborg, but Capitol Music Group, or CMG, faced a backlash for signing the rapper. In a statement announcing they had severed ties, CMG offered its deepest apologies to the Black community for our insensitivity. Now, I'm gonna go to the next slide and show this short video clip of him just to kind of contextualize this, and then I'm gonna come back to this slide and finish reading this. Okay, now, FN Mecca currently has more than 500,000 monthly Spotify subscribers and more than 1 billion views on its TikTok account. Its Instagram account, which has more than 220,000 followers, has been made private. FN Mecca's songs are performed by an anonymous Black man, according to Anthony Martini, who is one of the co-founders of Factory New, a company responsible for the AI. In an interview in 2021, he said, "A human voice performs the vocals, but we are working towards the ability to have a computer come up with and perform its own words, and even collaborate with other computers as co-writers." Now, there's a lot in this that's being said. There's a lot being said that's not being said, right? So first of all, Statistics about 500,000 Spotify subscribers, 200,000 followers on Instagram, 1 billion views on TikTok, right? All of those numbers can be contrived. All of those numbers can be fabricated, can be, created out of pure thin air, right? So we have to take that into account, because what happens, especially in the minds of young people or, underdeveloped minds, right? People see those numbers and automatically think that there's something to this. It must be something I need to be part of, right? Herd mentality, groupthink. So there's plenty of people online that have 1 million followers, or, that have the numbers that are buying followers, right? So there's that aspect of it too. But notice a couple of things here. It says FN Mecca is an artificial intelligence musician given the appearance of a Black male cyborg. Then it goes on to say FN Mecca's songs are performed by an anonymous Black man, according to Anthony Martini, who is one of the co-founders of Factory New. So who's writing the songs? I can tell you who's writing the songs, and I've read this in bits and pieces in articles, but nobody is actually coming out and saying it, right? They're talking in this very coded language, and there's more coded language in this next slide that I'm going to read as well. But artificial intelligence is fast tracking and is studying and is receiving nonstop data based on our interaction in the world. And particularly studying the rappers that are social media prone, right? The countenance of their music, the voice structure of their music, what the fans actually react to the most, right? So a lot of these TikTok challenges and a lot of these different dance challenges, crate challenges, all of these things are the algorithm actually creating consciousness. And they're studying you and testing to see how far they can go. How stupid will human beings prove themselves to be today? But it's also taking data and downloading information. And so the repulsiveness of this character represents that data collection. Now, do I think that, Capitol Music Group actually had this person on payroll and then all of a sudden they released him? No, this is all about getting you to look at this entity as an actual being. That's all this is about. Getting you to see this, whether if you're mad about it saying the N-word, you're not mad about the person who programmed it. You're mad at the entity saying the N-word. You're mad at the caricature of the physical representation of the entity, but it's not even a real entity. So again, this is mass manipulation. This is predictive programming. This is psychological warfare. And to people who don't have ears to hear and eyes to see, this will sneak right past your subconscious mind. Before CMG dropped the rapper, Black activists, here they come with the Black activism. They always stifling the energy and making, our culture look foolish, because you got to be really foolish to even be engaging this type of silliness. Before CMG dropped the rapper, Black activist group Industry Blackout sent them an open letter saying FN Mecca was offensive and a direct insult to the Black community and our culture. Again, FN Mecca was offensive. This is solidifying this entity as an actual being in language. This is how they sneak things past your subconscious mind and past your conscious mind and into your subconscious mind. And people without eyes to see and ears to hear will accept this as truth and as fact. They said it was an amalgamation of gross stereotypes, appropriative mannerisms that derive from Black artists, complete with slurs infused in lyrics. Mind you, the slurs that these Black artists are actually using consistently in their music. That's what's so consistently hypocritical about our culture, right? They pointed out FN Mecca had released a song with the rapper Gunna, who, by the way, is incarcerated right now, who is currently awaiting trial in the US on criminal charges with lyrics and social media posts being used as evidence. He is currently incarcerated for rapping the same type of lyrics this robot mimics. The difference is your artificial rapper will not be subject to federal charges for such, they said. Do you see the game? Black people, once again, oh, now the artificial intelligence bot doesn't have the same, they have more rights than we do. It's such a weak and victim-based perspective to be in. This digital effigy is a careless abomination and disrespectful to real people who face real consequences in life. Really? Look at how they control the emotion. They control the narrative. They control how people respond. They control what you care about, what you don't care about. He's saying the same exact thing that Black artists are saying. Gunna and Young Thug got actual cases right now behind, and it's so ironic to see so many people rally behind them, right? I don't know what's true and what's not true, but I do know that they claim to have significant evidence of 55 plus murders being connected to these brothers. I don't know, maybe that's something our culture should be cognizant of. Maybe we should be concerned about those type of things. Polio has been detected in New York City wastewater official says. The detection of the virus in sewage suggests it's circulating in the city, health department officials said. Polio outbreaks, now they're gonna tell you, this is on the New York Times, they're gonna tell you in the first sentence exactly what this is about, okay? Polio outbreaks incited regular panics decades ago until a VXXXX was developed and the disease was largely eradicated. Then on Friday, New York City health authorities announced that they had found the virus in wastewater samples, suggesting polio was probably circulating in the city again. Probably? Why would you use probably with the virus that has done as significant damage as polio has throughout the annals of time? Annabella Borges, a designer who lives in Brooklyn's Crown Heights neighborhood, said she has friends whose children probably were not VXXXXD. After the announcement on Friday, she said she planned to make her friends aware. Again, mass psychosis, mass mind manipulation. This is all about continuing to harness people's fear. The opening statement that I read from Jim Keith talking about herd consciousness, right? Mass mind control, mass fear tactics. Miss Borges said she hoped her 7-month-old daughter, Ava, who was old enough to have 3 of the 4 shots recommended for children, was far along enough in this regimen to be protected. Polio is really dangerous for babies like her, she said, and her daughter's nanny took Ava for a walk in the stroller. In New York City, the overall rate of polio VXXX among children 5 and under is 86%, and most adults in the United States were VXXXD against polio. Now, I've been getting a lot of questions from people writing me and asking my opinion about, do I still think, in terms of outside of the Jim Jones juice, right? Post 2020, do I still think that the regular immunization protocol of shots should be followed? My answer is emphatically no. I would not trust any of it. I showed in the Kingdom Within web series that there is a very strong potential that the flu, the FLU, the flu VXXXX from 2019 and 2020 potentially contained the same technology and contents of the current Jim Jones juice. So with that sort of as the backdrop, and understanding that they've already allotted this for children 6 months and up, I would think that they are going to go, not I would think, I know, that they are going above and beyond beyond any scope of our imagination in terms of how far they're willing to go to implement this agenda. I think to people, again, who have eyes to see and ears to hear, the writing is on the wall. So nothing of these institutions can be trusted anymore. I'm going to say that again. Nothing of these institutions can be trusted anymore, especially when it comes to your children. 2 people in New York City infected with West Nile virus. 2 people in New York City have been infected with West Nile as the virus has been detected in a record-shattering number of mosquitoes across the Big Apple, the city health department announced Tuesday. 1 human case of the virus was reported in Brooklyn and the other in Queens, while the department detected mosquitoes in all 5 boroughs to be carriers for West Nile. Mosquitoes can transmit the potentially deadly virus to humans through a bite. However, most people infected with West Nile virus develop mild symptoms like fever, headache, muscle aches, and extreme fatigue, or no symptoms at all. Again, here they come with the very neutral, asymptomatic, something that anybody could get: a fever, a headache, muscle aches. That's regular flu symptoms, right? And then throwing mosquitoes into the equation, just random news stories. This one was from the New York Post that just put this information out again, so that once you accept it in your subconscious mind, right, as the agenda of what this is all about unfolds, there is no revolutionary spirit because your subconscious mind already indirectly and directly has accepted this to be the truth. And notice the image of the mosquito just so eloquently placed there, right? But those of you guys who have been following my content know that I have continuously been talking about these genetically modified mosquitoes that have been released in Florida in particular, right there on the East Coast. Here we can see this nice little scary, creepy video that Bill Gates posted on his YouTube channel that's on there now, that has a replica of the Grand Reaper made out of mosquitoes. And he's referencing the technology that they have created, this particular company, Oxitec, has created in order to basically go in and nullify mosquito populations. Who trusts these people? State of Florida approves release of millions of genetically modified mosquitoes. This was in May of 2022. And they had already run multiple tests releasing millions of genetically modified mosquitoes in certain counties along Florida. Record deluge floods North Texas roads, rain totals nearing 15 inches. Rain recorded at DFW Airport is now the 2nd highest ever in a 24-hour period. Rain makes for wettest August on record. Rainfall in North Texas from Sunday to Monday toppled a record set more than 100 years ago and came close to the record for the rainiest 24 hours ever recorded in Dallas-Fort Worth. The official National Weather Service record station at Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport reported 9.19 inches of rain in the 24 hours ending at 2 p.m. on Monday. That ranked 2nd for the top 10 most rain over 24 hours in Dallas on record. The most was 9.57 inches that fell September 4th and 5th of 1932. Now, I have consistently been talking about this. At this point, for me, it's not even something that has to be proven. The information is so readily available, mainly being able to look up above your head and look into the sky and see the white grids crisscrossing. They start those storms in California. So I watched them here in Southern California create the atmosphere and the environment to carry the storm across the jet stream. The jet stream starts on the Pacific coast and it moves across the entire country. So I see them start these storms here. Last week, I talked about the situation in Arizona and Nevada, and now it's in Dallas, where these massive storms just park over one particular area and dump a bunch of water and then keep it moving. This is the same thing that happened in Katrina. This is the same thing that happened recently in Australia. This is the same thing that happened recently in Europe. I'm not saying that these people are all powerful, that, you know, God is not involved in this, that Mother Nature is not involved in this, but I'm saying we can't, there's no reason to deny the science. We can facilitate the spiritual understanding with proper data and information that is highly verifiable and highly provable because it's happening right in front of our eyes. God is a scientist. God came up with the formula for atoms, the whole, like the metaphysics of everything that we know to be true is rooted in science and chemistry and biology and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. But we're so scared to deal with the science. And it didn't say that God was going to be implementing all of the floods and the earthquakes and the wars and the rumors of wars. But I think we're all clear that God's going to allow it. God is allowing it. Whatever your concept of God is it, you know, sitting back in the waiting for something in particular? Is the chaos to, you know, to unfold to extreme levels that we've never seen before? Or is God waiting on us? Or is God expressing through us? Some of us, not all of us anymore.
Right now, the search is on for 3 people who police say shot at a Savannah rapper, killing a member of his entourage. It happened in Los Angeles, and cameras captured the aftermath. Shots fired, a fight taken to the streets, and this chaotic scene, the ending of a shooting that started in Los Angeles, California. Sheriff's deputies pulling out a man who had been shot in an SUV. Savannah rapper Quando Rondo, a passenger in that car, frantic at the sight. It all started at this mobile gas station at 5:30 Friday evening. LAPD says witnesses heard multiple gunshots, then watched a couple cars zoom off. 3 people in one car shot at this black Cadillac Escalade. It's unclear if those inside shot back.
Can I get some space, please?
It ended at Santa Monica Boulevard. Deputies found it peppered with bullet holes and a shattered window. One man inside, a member of Rondo's entourage, had been shot. The 23-year-old was taken to the hospital where he died. A scene left with remnants of the fight, shoes left in the street, doors flung open. The suspects still on the run. We still don't know what spurred it all, but LAPD says it started at a gas pump.
The victim vehicle, they pulled up. They were pumping gas, and it looks like they probably finished pumping gas, and the suspects approached from the alley, got out of the car, and started shooting at those victims.
Investigators are still trying to piece together details, but they're looking for a white 4-door sedan with suspects wearing dark clothing.
Police helicopters overhead, so we knew something was up.
People in the neighborhood shocked by the news.
Disappointed. There have been a lot of incidents in the past couple of years. It does seem that things have been happening more often on Melrose, between Fairfax and Melrose and around here.
According to TMZ, Rondo was not injured.
So I asked the question in, kind of replaying what happened to Quando Rondo and the brother that was with him who was murdered in LA recently. Is hip hop facing a divine judgment? Is our culture of death, and we do have a culture of death, we do have our music is facing extremely monumental levels of low vibrational content that is staggering to the eye and to the ear beyond anything that I can comprehend. Sometimes when I listen to some of the music, like just randomly, if I'm in a car and somebody else pulls up to me, or I was at the beach the other day and I was sitting in my car and there was a car not too far from me playing this song hella loud. It was a dude, he was rapping, but the whole song was like talking about getting drunk and having sex. That's literally what the song was about. And, it had I don't know, I can't even, it was so like, it wasn't even preschool. You know what I mean? It was so primitive. It was so, reptilian brained, the frequency of it. You know what I mean? So imagine our 12 and 13 and 14 and 15-year-olds that are listening to this shit and then going online and seeing the cracks and crevices of Megan and Cardi B and Amber Rose and Beyonce and whoever else that they actually want to see. You can go online and see it all. You know what I mean? You can get your lower nature stimulated with ease nowadays. Controlling it, not so much. One of the stories I was gonna put in here, but I'm already over time, but I don't want to go too much more over time. But one of the stories I was going to talk about, and maybe I'll save this for next week, is all of the different situations that are happening in the church right now between the robbery. And then you've had these recent situations with pastors calling out Beyonce for her song Church Girl. I was going to talk about that, right? Because I just feel like Beyonce now at her age, being a mother, should be a little bit more graceful with how she's carrying herself. And I think that her and like Erykah Badu twerking on stage with Megan, you know what I mean? Like, why would our queens or women who should be stepping into queendom, why are they stepping down and trying to resonate with the concubines? I'm just not feeling in that. And I'm not going to ever, especially because I understand how this culture is affecting our girls. There's a song called Seduce and Scheme. It's by 2 female rappers. I was going to put that in this news segment, but it was so like ratchet and vulgar, and just every language was like porn, a balance between porn and prostitution. It was just so disgusting and distasteful. And the whole entire song is on that vibration. Right? So bringing this conversation back to Quando Rondo, right? And recognizing the power of language, the power of words. If you put an album out into the ethers and you have millions of fans and you talking about shooting and killing and bitch this and hold that, and you know what I'm saying? Like the frequency of the vibration of your words is going to start making things happen. I know that's a conversation that's kind of difficult for us to have. I was the biggest Tupac fan ever. Anybody that really knows me knows when Pac died, I died like I lost a piece of, like a part of my soul was gone. But now in my wisdom, and especially in seeing what's happening in the world, I can totally see how Pac prophesized and called his murder and the extravagance of his murder into being. He prophesized that shit for 10 years straight. The frequency of his own personal divine judgment on himself had no choice but to make manifest. So again, talking about the Quando Rondos of the world and the Extentacions and just hip hop culture in general, there's a price to pay that comes with that energy and with that frequency and with that power and with that access to minds. That's why I'll never take this platform for granted, because I have access to people's minds. That's not a game, but it's a game for this world.
Why are you talking to me in your sexy voice?
Wait, let me stop this and set this up right. In this week's Concubine culture news.
Show my sexy side. Why are you talking to me in your sexy voice? Because I was going to get her, sweetie. We can. It's so deep for nobody to be mad at nothing. You want to kiss me? I want to kiss you. You want to fuck me? Yeah, I would. I felt like you ain't really fuck with me. I'm like, damn. Why would I have like any problem? Me and you would have been together. Before these niggas got the picture. Yeah, yes, bitch, period. Bitch, shut the fuck up talking to me. Like, why are you talking to me? Ignore y'all how y'all fathers do. Hello. Sorry, you like girls. I mean, I like what I like. I like you. So who wants to talk? Me? Well, we gonna bump real good.
I mean, is this real? Is this like what? And this is on Revolt. And so Diddy with 3 daughters, you actually think that there's any sort of standard, any sort of substance, any sort of value in anything that's being said between these 2 females who are avatars in the culture? Avatars meaning high levels of energy and concentration, and thereby impact and influence. It's absolutely and I really talk about this because I really want these young women and our girls to understand what I see in Carisha She probably fell in love with Diddy. You know what I mean? And Diddy wrapped her all up in his world. And then in true Scorpio fashion, unevolved Scorpio, chewed her up and spit her out. You know what I'm saying? But so I see somebody that's probably trying to make this man jealous, right? With her antics. She thinks that that's gonna, or even trying to one up him, right? Outman the man, so to speak, unevolved man, let's be clear. And so she's going out of her way to, like, you know what I mean, get her licks in. And she's making herself look really, 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 really silly in the process. Again, this culture now of women that are humping and graveling on the ground and doing all this extra out of character shit in order to get attention, men or women alike, is corny. This is concubine culture, and I'm going to continue to point it out, and I'm going to continue to talk about it, because the spiritual ramifications in the Bible, where it talks about Delilah, right? And these different parables that we've had from different societies and cultures all over the world that talk about the unevolved, the lower nature in humanity, that once it starts taking control, we start going out of direction and out of the frequency of God. And that's what this type of reflection does. This woman has a child. She has a daughter. I would die. I would absolutely die. You talk about extreme embarrassment. I would die if there was footage somewhere on the internet of me talking like that, and the idea of my son seeing something like that. Oh my God, that would be the judgment of all judgments for me, because I care so much about, like, what my son thinks about me and making him proud. And you know what I'm saying? Establishing a certain type of visual and frequency for the type of girls that he should be. Yeah, I know I don't expect him to go look for me now, but when he becomes a man, yeah, I'm trying to set the tone for, you know what I'm saying? What does a queen actually look like? So now you got our brothers not sure how to interact with us, whether they're interested in us or not. Just the whole male-female dichotomy is continuously being chipped away. Every time these corny ass, loose ass, game goofy ass females, which both of them are, and everybody who's representing them and everybody who's cheering them and campaigning them, you are game goofy too. Promoting this clown shit in our culture, and then leaving our daughters to decipher, to expecting them to have the discernment between this bullshit and what a woman is really actually supposed to be. And these are the females that y'all giving attention to. These are the females that our men in hip hop culture are promoting. So again, is hip hop under divine judgment? I would say emphatically yes. That goes for the female artists too. You know what I mean? The day is coming where we all going to have to really come face to face with, to whom much is given, much is expected. That's what they say, right? Okay, so what if you fumble the bag in ways, in unfathomable ways, which is what all of them are doing at this point? I don't see any power. Even Jay-Z's new record on DJ Khaled's album, and I'm winding this up. I got one more slide after this, you guys, and then I'm done. And I know it's late on the East Coast, so shout out to everybody that's watching me on the East Coast. Much love. It is 9:30 here in LA. But so I heard, first of all, DJ Khaled's new album is whack. Sorry, but I have to say that. There's one song on there that I like, and it's the one with Capleton and Buju Banton. The rest of it sounds like, it's all recreated music, stuff that he's already done before. So, but I see Jay-Z getting his props for his verse on, I think it's the song God Did. I think that's the name of it, but he went line for line. All of his bars are consistent with what we expect for Jay-Z. Yes, it was raw. Yes, it had had me excited. The hip hop head in me, for the first, I have a love-hate situation going on with these artists right now, because y'all just pretending like there's not a big ass elephant in the room, and there is. And you actually have the resources and the access in order to help our people get prepared for what's happening, and you won't, because you can't. Right? So I have this love-hate relationship with these brothers and these artists right now, because obviously the God in me is always going to root for them and want for the best outcome, right? But I also recognize, it's clear as day to me, that these artists are definitely working for Satan. And Jay-Z, in no uncertain terms, is working for Satan right now. So when I hear a song like that and he's constantly bragging about being a billionaire, the whole me, you know, that's hip hop, obviously. Yeah. But in the middle of a pandemic, you in your 50s, you have a greater responsibility. And you're a billionaire, and you're a father, and you're a hip hop icon. Yeah, you are not meeting the standards and the qualifications of what I feel like. And not, when I say this is not just on me. I'm looking at the world. I'm looking at the culture. You know what I'm saying? So we already know you got the money. We already know you got the girl. We already know you're the only one that can, you know, go bar for bar without having to write your notes down. Like, how many times can you say that same shit? The world needs inspiration. The world needs motivation. And I always expected Black men, particularly rappers in hip hop, to step up to the plate when it was time. Maybe not most of them, but some of them. And so far, none of them have. Actually, you know, Big Boy from Outkast be dropping jewels on his Instagram channel. Bob, obviously, B.O.B., he has his moments, but then he also be on some other shit sometimes too. So there's that. Who else is there? You know, Teddy Riley drops jewels every now and then on his, and our culture, just in terms of the, you know, the entertainment and the sports, and, you know, the people who we kind of look to as purveyors of culture are 100% being used and manipulated, and being used to manipulate the mass consciousness right now to keep us diverted from the shit that really matters. I haven't seen any sort of power in any sentiment from hip hop culture in terms of the last 2.5 years. And that's as nice as I could possibly say it. Okay. So what I wanted to do in order to, let's see, did I skip my page? Okay, no, I didn't. Okay, so what I want to do with every segment is close out on a high vibe, right? So sometimes I'll be doing interviews, sometimes I'll be sharing certain resources or content. Tonight, I had a brother not too long before I sat down to start recording this, send me this beautiful, it's not a poem, but it reads like a poem, right? And it touched me so deeply because I see so much of myself through these words, and I felt these words so deeply that I wanted to share this with you guys, and in honor and appreciation of him even thinking of me, right? But also to keep the fire burning in the divine feminine consciousness, and to keep us focused as women and the children of the sun, the beings of light, however we want to identify ourselves, the children of God, to keep us focused within, and to keep us looking at the higher and greater objective, which is, for me, self-mastery and living life at its highest heights, right? So I'm going to share this with you guys, and then we're going to close this out. And let me just put my frequency music in the background to set a tone. All right. Thank you so much, brother, for sending this to me. It's so beautiful. Quote, don't date a mystic if you want the life you have. If you are comfortable and cozy, stay away. Whatever you have built around yourself to create comfort, it cannot stand in the blazing fire of a mystical woman. She is no trophy. She is no bodily pleasure maker. She is the seer of souls. She is the womb that births, plural, the divine into the flesh and bone of matter. She doesn't mean to burn your village to the ground, but she has seen what you are meant to become. You are not a peasant shearing sheep as you have thought. You are a king dressed in rags who has amnesia. It is her assumption that you have come to be reborn. If you haven't, turn back now while the world you know still exists. If she touches you and all the voices on the wind go silent, if you feel you are in a snow globe when you embrace her, she is your destroyer. She will destroy the false idol you see in the mirror. She will smash it open because it is your prison. If you wish to stay there, she will shatter you another way. She will leave. A mystic may not for long engage with that which is too small for her, unless she is nurturing a seedling into its destiny. But the seed must be capable of fulfilling its own potential. Everyone wants the magic, but nobody wants the mystery, the schooling, a thing that must be lived in a place where book knowledge has no meaning, for all books are manuals to the world you already know. That means the well-honed intellect, the masculine theory of reason will not save you, cannot free you. It is for a world whose time is over. The mystery, by its very nature, must show you what has never been seen, never been written, never been known, because before you were forged, it was impossible. The arts of women have been called the dark arts for too long, and they are the keys to infinity, infinite form, infinite being, infinite life. The art of far sight, the art of inner knowing, the art of sign reading, the art of deep feeling, the art of song and circles, the art of intuition, the art of frequency translation, the healing arts, the art of kitchen witchery, the art of communication, the art of sacred story weaving, the art of creation and manifestation, and others too wild to name. If your dreams are not filled with the mystery, you are better off with a normal girl, because a mystic will see things that are invisible to you. She will feel things that you cannot feel beneath the layers of numbness you have wrapped yourself in. She will call upon your true self, your real soul, and she will sing it down into you, into herself, and the life will never be the same. And he said that's by Allison Nappi, Nappi, if you guys want to look her up, Allison Nappi or Nappi. But it's very much you, if I may be so bold to say so. So, that was so beautiful and it touched me. And I really just wanted to read that and share that with you guys so that I could finish this conversation on a righteous and a high note. And once again, this is a weekly news segment that I'm going to be featuring every week on my membership channel. I will be premiering this headline news segment. I'm really excited about it. I really like being